Good afternoon. I love food. In fact, if you look at me keenly, you'd easily tell that I have a very healthy relationship with food. So healthy that this watch party comes to you every Friday after lunch. Hi and welcome to the 4th episode of the Watch Party Season 2. This week, we are talking about, food. I'm your guide for the next 1.5 hours, and my name is George Mutero. 10 years ago, President Barack Obama launched the Feed the Future initiative to address global hunger and food insecurity. It was also meant to reverse global food prices in 2007 and 2008. Currently, the initiative runs in 19 countries on 3 continents. 12 of the 19 countries are in Africa. This information is important because as the world marks Feed the Future Week, today on the Watch Party, we are discussing feeding the future and cultivating hope through investing in African farmers. Remember, this stream is available for sharing with your friends and family. So, feel free to invite as many of them as possible to interact with us during the stream and panel discussion right after, here on Facebook at yebo.live and on United States African Development Foundation page on Facebook, on Twitter at yebo_live and at USADF, and on Instagram at yebo.live and at USADF. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's Watch Party.
What gives me hope? It is the resilience of women who maintain their families' health and nutrition in spite of so many adversities.
So I truly believe that a continued dedication to science-based approaches will help farmers to protect the environment while producing the food that we all need for healthy and productive lives.
I've seen firsthand that farmers and others involved in agriculture are among the most resilient and ambitious people on the planet.
We are bringing leaders from around the world in different sectors together.
Partnerships between the global north and the global south.
It's up to us, governments, private sector, and non-profit organizations to turn that hope into a reality.
When this happens, we will end hunger.
End hunger.
End hunger.
End global hunger.
End global hunger.
We can end hunger in our lifetime.
Our past and present doesn't need to be our future.
Sakai Ejore. I am the chairperson and founder of Neema Poultry Enterprise. Neema Group is a group of young women. We started in 1998. I found 20 young ladies who had left school. We were like sisters. We could not separate, so we formed Neema and registered it as a registered group, self-help group. We came with an idea of keeping poultry. We wanted to improve our economic standards also, especially starting at the household level, because I focused, according to my vision, I focused to improvement of household. That's home, not to miss a meal. ADF gave us a grant for the pilot project. We purchased 1,000 chicks, and and now we rented a house where we kept the poultry. You can see where I started, from the pilot project to expansion, where we have these permanent buildings. In Turkana County, we are the largest egg producers. So our peak production, this center can manage 1,000 eggs per day. It has built our relationship with other stakeholders, especially in food security. We supply eggs to Lokcher Trading Center. Some of the members have retail shops, so that is where we take the eggs. And also we have hotels in Lodwar. We've been supplying eggs there. ADF have really helped us as a women's group. They have really supported us. And as NEMA, we bank on ADF because all that, the picture we have is through their support.
Je suis donc Caroline Diallo. Je suis la présidente de l'association Ragoussi, qui est basée à 25 km de Ouagadougou sur l'axe Ouagabobo. Ragoussi est une association de production et de commercialisation de beurre de karité biologique et conventionnel. Et Ragoussi transforme aussi le beurre de karité en produits dérivés tels que des pommades pour le corps, les cheveux et puis du savon de toilette. Pour ce qui concerne l'activité de production de beurre de karité, c'est d'abord une activité donc, des femmes, réservée aux femmes. Voilà. Et il faut dire que les femmes faisaient déjà des productions individuelles. Voilà, elles produisaient chez elles et elles vendaient au marché à des prix dérisoires, à des prix pas intéressants. Voilà. Mais avec l'arrivée donc de l'association Ragoussi, donc ça a permis donc de réunir les femmes en un seul lieu et de les permettre de faire des productions groupées. Afin que ces femmes-là puissent donc vendre le beurre qu'elles produisent et aussi pouvoir tirer profit. Voilà. Le marché de l'Occitane il est important, mais depuis 2003, nous n'avons qu'un seul client régulier. Ces femmes-là avaient un revenu moins intéressant. Et au jour d'aujourd'hui, ce revenu s'est amélioré. Donc, ça veut dire que ces femmes-là sont devenues autonomes. Et maintenant, avec l'aide de USADF, tous ces éléments-là ont été résolus. Et on a aussi bénéficié d'équipements qui n'existaient pas, qu'on n'avait pas auparavant. Les équipements donc reçus par le biais de USADF nous a permis d'alléger les tâches donc, des femmes productrices donc, de beurre de karité. Donc au jour d'aujourd'hui, ces équipements-là ont facilité vraiment le travail donc, des femmes.
ndani ya kooperative tunatumika na watu wale ambao wanaitwa wamambre. Ule mtu mwashapana adhesion yake, yani part sociale, ni ule mtu mwenye iko na droit ya kupata hiyo mbegu ya kooperative. Tunapatia mkulima mbegu inafuatana na shamba yake ngisi iko, ile tunaita superficie au are ngapi, na tukisha vuna ile mmea kopabu inatwala 60% ya ile production na mwanamemba anabeba 40% ya ile mavuno. Kwa sababu mbegu iko bei sana, tunaona mwanamemba sazimoya hana ile namna ya kushinunulia peke ile mbegu kwa ile dolari moja.
Nechela hali ubungu kenkula umbirai. Ebira byani nakabiguza na ndipire kwa bana amasomo na nalipire kwa bana amasomo na ngula ko ne chinalia no bushwesi bwane mbugweri hakana bo najire nakwine ko bungu kebuli mu bulia kola njira ngwere mpene zanisharu
okumikolo nkola kugera ko pabu. Kopabu ina kabambuzire mburo nanagendi mwinginga anampe mburo fana patana bushineye nahinga miezi sharu miezini bila bijimo mwishwa akabamba gamburo ya $100 hanonyeza anishirole ya $100 wage na amikolo nkola hebwenene abana ngwere bananda ngwere muzire muguma nabananda walola okunsungura walo kunsungura bwenene noku bushwesi bwe ngafu ensunguro emwe ibwine mwabwine nkabane ngafu halibusire haline ziri mu Rwanda bwenene nchidinire amwe nani bene azopi na chidinira na kopabu na USADF kama mbwino kunshwe chidinire shwe kasani nchibagalire bwinja iri fere mundandi kabakani mugwire kandi uko ngendekezo kubaka ububasi bwani gusidizi nsunguru yazizabura nagenda naongeza obushwesi.
Wakati yenye tulipataga nani franga tulienda uza nani pomme de terre Rwanda, tukauza nani tone 6.5, tukalima nani hektare 4.5. Ile hektare 4.5 tulikuwa tunatarajia kutosha nani 45 tone. Activités zenye zinabakia ziko 3. Kuko nani gestion de coopérative, manuel de procédure na création de ya réseau. Lakini tukingali mu zingine franga zenye hazitumika na ziko dekese. Kuko nani evaluation, kuko ya auto evaluation.
Gɛlɛya caman b'an ka o la. N'i y'a jateminɛ, gɛlɛya yɛrɛ fɔlɔ-fɔlɔ ye dugukolo ko ye. An kun tɛ dugukolo sɔrɔ, an bɛ sɛnɛ kɛ. Dugukolo fitinin bɛ d'i ma, e bɛ t'i ka baara kɛ o kɔnɔ. Bagan t'i bolo k'a baara, sumasi ɲɛnama t'i bolo k'a fɛn. E kɔni m'a siɲɛ ten, n'i ye mini min sɔrɔ, i b'o k'i n'i ka denw ka musaka ye. O gɛlɛyaba b'a kan. O y'a kɔrɔ komini musow jɛra ka fara ɲɔgɔn kan, ka cakɛda dɔ sigi. k'o ɲɛmɔgɔya kalifa ne la. Ala barika Rabbi, ka defu ka dɛmɛ ye caman nɔgɔya a la. A ma ban, nka a ye caman nɔgɔya a la. Parce que cikɛminɛn kun t'an bolo. Ala barika Rabbi, an ye dɔɔnin sɔrɔ o yɔrɔ ɲina. O ni fana, a defu yɛrɛ ka bolodiɲɔgɔnma kosɔn, ka na ni bagan ninnu ye ani n'o ye sɛnɛkɛminɛn ninnu ye. A kɛra sababu ye an ye dugukolo sɔrɔ cɛw fɛ. Parce que an ka dugutigi wulila k'a jɔ ani mairie. Minɛn dira musow ma, wa fɔ u ka dugukolo di musow ma. Ala barika Rabbi, o ye dugukolo dɔ d'an ma. An bɛ ka ci k'o ka ɲɛ. Tari 3 de kun b'an bolo salon. Nka ɲina Ala barika an sera ka tari 37 sɛnɛ. An bɛ se k'a fɔ n'u kɔni ma bɔ fɔlɔ, an bɛ se k'a fɔ ko yɛlɛma dɔ bɛ yen fɔlɔ.
An ye faamuya min sɔrɔ a la o ye nɔgɔ ko ye. Bama farafin nɔgɔ. Komi an kun b'an ka forow da fɔlɔ, an tɛ farafin nɔgɔ k'a la. An kun tɛ dugukolo minnu bɛ d'an ma cɛw fɛ, nɔgɔ ɲɛnama tɛ a la. An kun tɛ farafin nɔgɔ k'a la, farajɛ ka nɔgɔ a sɔrɔ man di. A tɛ sɔrɔ ni wari tɛ. Ni wari t'i bolo an b'a sɛnɛ ten. N'an y'a sɛnɛ an tɛ sɔrɔ ɲɛnama k'a la. U nana nɔgɔko kala jira an na. An ye farafin nɔgɔ don. O nɔgɔ minnu dɔrɔn u ma kɛ foro kɔnɔ nka an ye ja ka dɔɔninw jɛ kɛrɛda fɛ ka k'an ka foro kɔnɔ.
Ne ye Bidu Tarawele ye. Ne ka foro tari 1 mun don. Ɲinan n y'a kɛ 2 ye. N kɔni hakili b'a la n'a ɲana k'an ka bɔrɛ 20 sɔrɔ. Bɔrɛ 20 in kɔnɔna na, n bɛ bɔrɛ 7 bɔ a la k'a da an ka ɲɔtugu tɔnba mɔgɔw ma. Komi ne tɛ se tubabukan fɔ la, ne ye bamanan de ye. Tɔ 7 n b'o kɛ ka denbaya balo. 13 bɔrɛ 13 n b'o kɛ ka denbaya balo. 7 in n'a feerelu ma 30 hakili kɔni bɛ n ka 21 sɔrɔ. Hakilina min bɛ ka fara a kan, komi o ye misiko ninnu da fanfɛla la, o nisɔndiya yɛrɛ kosɔn, cikɛla bɛ baara kɛ kosɛbɛ. Ni mɔgɔ y'i kɔfilɛ fɛn na, fɛn min y'i dɛmɛ fɛn ye, i bɛ baara kɛ. Ne kɔni hakili bɛ dɔ k'an ka fara n ka bɔrɛ 20 kan ɲina. Ka samiyaji a bɛ Ala bolo a kɛ jɔn bolo. An kɔni jigi bɛ a kan an ka caya o ye.
Faranga min bɛ n bolo, n'an ye jate minɛ an ka sumaw taaboloya la, salon an sera ka tɔni 23 de feere. Nka ɲina Ala barika Rabbi, an bɛ se ka tɔni 60 feere. N'a ma yɛlɛ o sanfɛ a tɛ jigin o duguma. O faranga de bɛ bolo ka fara a kan.
Sunana Fatima Diataga, ni president ce Vole Formation Union Aminci Tsarnawa. Mu mata da muke nan ga wajen sarrafa albasa na mun ka zaka. A mai da albasa gari wanda ake yin miya da shi. Albasa kunnai da albasa da kanta da abin ga albasa da kanta da kuma hallo tiji din albasa.
Sunana Arfa Adamu. Yana cikin kungiya ta mamba aminci. Shi tana mana amfani. Tunda muna in bukata ta tashi gare mu, in muna da sai mu saida mu yi bukata. Sannan kuma yanda muke mun ka shiga muna da dubara ne mun kai dubara. Mun ka ga za mu ji daɗi.
Sunana Bube Nomo, mayor na communal kin Tsarnawa. Na farko dai zan yi muku godiya matuƙa da wannan dama da kuka bamu kake in ga unhwani wanda albasa take bamu nan karkara zan yi ɗan tarihi kaɗan kakin ADF ta zo nan bisa ga taimaka mana. A lokacin kakin su zaka albasa mutane manoma ba su samu amfanin albasa kamar waɗansu mutane na can daban. Tunda lokacin nan albasa ko ina mun an kayo ta mutane na zakkuwa su zo da buhuwan su saye su ko kuma su yi dilanci su aje ta ko ina bisa hanya. Don ko bisa hanya in an ka aje ta manomi babu tsari wanda manomi zai iya shi zo shi san albasan nan tashi lalle kuɗin da ake ce mishi hakan na take. Allah Ubangiji da iko ne ya ka ADF sun ka zo bisa a gina mana wannan kwantuwar. Wannan kwantuwar za a gina mana shi aka zo aka tambayi inda za a yi shi. Mary ta ba da seat inda za a yi shi. Yannan da an ka zo an fara da cooperative guda wadda aka ce ma aminci. Ita an ka fara da ita. Daga nan an ka fara tsara manoma, sun ka yi gurfaman da yawa har sun ka zama union. Da sun ka zama union sa'an nan ne duka albasar da ake nomawa ta komo cikin kwantuwar.
Union ta mai mambar da yawa, tana da kungiya cooperative 165 kuma tana da mambar 8,745 wa'yan daga cin amfanin union kenan. To union ta wadda ADF ta kama ma, kakin ADF ta zo mambarkinta suna yin noma albasa. Sai dai noma albasa da suka ba su cin amfanin shi. Sai yanzu komi ya zo da dai manoma suna jin daɗi suna samun amfanin abinsu. Sun tambaye mu kakana muka yi a wurin mu ya ci gaba ya zan haka. Tunda yanzu nan kwantuwar kenan. Duk mambarkin duk wanda sun kai a noma albasa. Kwantuwar ita gaba da firi kuma firi mai kyau wanda manoma za su saidawa su samu amfanin aikin da suka yi. ADF mu ta muna abu wanda hajjikokinmu na baya ba a iya manta da ADF ga abin da ta yi muna. Mu dai mun gode kwarai ga aikin da ADF ta yi muna. Da ADF ta yi muna aiki an ka gaya kuma har wasu partner su ma suna zakkuwa suna kamawa su ma. Bisa ga da tahiyar da sun ka ga aikin da an ka gwada mana ba mu tsaya ba dai muna ci gaba. Yanzu har bankuna suka zakkuwa wajenmu suna son su yi hulɗa da mu saboda sun ga wurin da shi na tahiya. Wallahi mu dai sai mu ce to alhamdulillah.
What I love about Africa is its similarities with food. We are a diverse continent with varying appetites and taste buds, as we do with our ways of practicing farming. Today, I have the honor of having a diverse panel on the show to discuss these very important topic. On the panel, I have Geraldine Sikot, who is the Regional Portfolio Manager of the West African and Central African region in the Programs Division at the United States Development Foundation. She oversees the development of programs in Benin, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Liberia, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, and Senegal. Ms. Sikot has over a decade of international development experience in Africa, spanning through power and energy, water and sanitation, education, tourism, land, agriculture, governance, and transport. I'm also joined by Mr. Musa Gadio, who is the country program director, coordinator of the USADF in Mali since 2011. He is experienced in civil education and training, as well as capacity building, especially for women and producer groups in the fields of entrepreneurship, community health, and governance. I'm also joined by Caroline Diallo, who is the president of Ragusi Women's Association. She brings over 15 years of experience working with rural women in her locality of Tanyin Dasuri, a rural commune on the outskirts of Ouagadougou. Caroline is keeping the legacy of her late mother, who founded the Ragusi Women's Association, which is now comprised of 1,500 members. In her role, she manages the association and promotes best practices for collecting and processing shea nuts, kernels, and for the production of shea butter and soaps. We're also joined by Mr. Ovid Mugisho, a young entrepreneur. He is currently the agribusiness officer for AZOP in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Under his position, Ovid focuses on agriculture, economics, and development for grantees projects, monitoring and evaluation, and overseeing and evaluating key market indicators in agricultural projects. And last but not least, we are joined by Mr. Jeffrey Gilio, who is the Regional Portfolio Manager for East Africa and Southern Africa at the USADF. He joined USADF in 2012, and he has worked on the portfolios of West, East, and Southern Africa. For more than 10 years, Jeff has been working to support leadership of African organizations and community groups in agricultural and community development initiatives. Jeff is an avid cyclist and a gardener, and he joins our watch party for the second week. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with Miss Geraldine. You understand that women make up to 50 to 60% of total labor force in the agriculture sector. You have worked very closely with women in Africa, and especially the western part of the continent. How does this percentage reflect in the output of agricultural products across the continent?
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how I can turn on my camera. I think it says the host might be able to let me be on screen.
All right, we'll just sort that out in a minute, and
No
you will
problem.
be able to join with your video.
Yeah. Sorry. And if that's fine, if that doesn't work either, I'm happy to speak off screen as well.
Mm-hmm. You can continue as our host lets you in on the video.
No problem. Apologies. And the question was in terms of what's the impact that we have seen in terms of
how does the percentage of 50 to 60% of women labor force in the agriculture sector, how does that translate to output of products across the continent?
Oh, this is a great question. Thank you for posing that. I would love to use an example of how we have seen this work very well in one of our country portfolios that we have. Definitely, we all know, as has been said, when you invest in women, you're investing in a whole family input. The women are usually the backbone, as you've seen through the videos, of the agricultural outputs that we've seen. And what we have tried to do at ADF, and as we continue, our focus has always been on women and girls. I wanted to use specifically an example, not to make this answer too long-winded, but one of the examples I would love to use is showing this example through our Niger project. Our Niger project focuses exclusively on two groups, youth and women. These are usually the two groups that tend to be a little bit more marginalized and not have access to finance, and which would include helping them to build their businesses, their agribusinesses. And this project specifically focuses on that. At ADF, we focus primarily on women's agriculture activities. And like I said, through this program with the Niger project that we're looking at, is exclusively focusing on women and youth. And we have seen, or we're seeing, the impact of it, that it is by lifting the women up, we are lifting the household up, and eventually, and that all, which leads to lifting up a community. So definitely the investments that not just at ADF, but the donor community has put an emphasis on in terms of ensuring that women have agricultural resources, that also goes into changing policies that allow women to engage mostly in these activities, that including enabling women to own land is an example of how we have seen that across the continent. And once you are able to own land and they are able to have that, they can also continue to go on to financing, including getting bank loans through that process. Oh, there we go. Good morning. Now we're on camera. So we have seen that the ripple effect of investing in women doesn't just go in terms of just giving them the tools, but also applying the policies that accompanies them to be able to move that process forward. Like I said, I would love to give examples. Niger is definitely one that popped into mind in terms of how we've seen that across the impact of that. And this is a specific project that we're working on, specifically on agriculture, women, policy, infrastructure, all of it combines together. So it's a unique way to talk about that. And happy to go into more details, but that's all for now.
Definitely, we'll be coming to you more, especially you mentioned something very important, you know, women owning land and what that does to empower them. I know we have a beautiful story that we did a couple of years ago from Mali regarding that, but we'll be coming back to you, Geraldine, in a minute. Let's now speak to Jeff. You were here last time, but the last time we had you on the show, we were discussing about small enterprises, how to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs. Some of these entrepreneurs under your portfolio, Jeff, are in the agriculture sector. This being the backbone of many economies across the continent, what kind of empowerment have you found necessary for smallholder farmers?
It's a great question. Thank you, George. Good morning, good afternoon, and thanks for inviting me back. I take it that I didn't embarrass myself too much last time, so hence the invitation to come back and talk. So farming to me is very close to my heart and close to my waistline. You know, if it wasn't for farmers, then none of us would really have food. And so it's very critical that, you know, we work with farmers. And myself, I consider myself to be a small scale farmer. So I like to grow my own food as well. And but in general, the way that we empower farmers is the same way that we empower any individual that we work with. We believe in them. They know the answers. They know the solutions. It's just us to help them get to a next step. We aren't telling them what they should do and shouldn't do. They have a goal, they have an objective, and we just sort of help create the path for them to go down. So in order to do that, we provide them capital, we provide them tools, and we help linkages. So the linkages are really one of the most critical components outside of the capital and the tool. If you're growing something, but you have nowhere to sell it, then you won't have any money. That's just basically fundamental economy, you know, fundamental for the farmers that we work with. They need to be able to have markets, and they need to be able to add value when possible. So we do this, you know, basically through, it's as simple as providing them capital to be able to increase production, to be able to add value to their produce. And then we provide them tools so that they can do it more efficiently and more effectively to increase production. And then we also provide them linkages. So as much as possible, we work with various partners across a value chain to help them access a new market.
Sorry, what you say, especially about linkages and value addition, is a subject that's very, very close to my heart because in our coverage of the continent, we have come across what the right linkages and the right value addition has done, not just to communities, but to individuals. And we'll be coming back to you to discuss this further. But At the moment, allow me to go directly to the DRC. This is the Future Week. Mr. Ovid, you come from a country that has the potential to feed the world. Talk to us about the agricultural activities going on in your country, especially the success of the potato village we just saw on the video. Sorry, you're on mute, Ovid. Ovid, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Sorry, yeah, here we go. So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. This is a great opportunity, and I want to thank you, George, for mentioning that the DRC has the potential to feed the world. Actually, the 2/3 of the Congolese population is fed and is into agriculture. And right now, 55% of the country is covered with forests. Now, saying that, we have really the potential to feed the world and even to feed everyone in the country. But the main issue is that we have bad state of roads, which is one of the biggest issues into agriculture sector, but also the industry, especially the transformation industries that haven't been running for over 6 years now. And let's say that after also the armed conflicts that we had in the region, the war in the region, the Kivu, not only the South Kivu, but also the North Kivu, we realized that agriculturists have left the agriculture sector. And most of the people, instead of agriculture, they had to do other work, and most of them went into mining. And we understand that if people leave agriculture, the agriculture sector, that will have a negative impact on food security. So as ZOP, we came up and gathered all the agriculturists, and we helped agriculturists from Buhanga, which is in South Kivu, to create a cooperative, which is Kopabu. The cooperative has been ruling for over 5 years now, and USADF came in 2016. And here, let me say thank you to CD Glynn, who came over and visited even the farmers. He visited the fields, and with the discussions he had with farmers, that's how we came up with the project. So actually, the cooperative is ruling and is running, and has more than 400 members. And we came up with a different approach, whereby when a member produces or harvests potatoes, we have 60% of the potatoes that goes on the markets. That's local markets, even also the markets from the other part of the country. And then 30% of the production remains at home. That's for the family consumption, because he can't sell everything. So he has to also keep something in the house to feed the family. And we have the 10% that remains, which is used at the seedlings. So with that saying, with the help of USADF, the funds or the grants came in when the farmers really needed it, because they had issues with storing the potatoes. And we have built storage or buildings whereby they can stock their products before going to the market, but also they can keep or preserve the seedlings for 2 or 3 months. And let's say that also this has helped, this project has helped so many farmers. And because I remember at the beginning of the project, we had a production of about 800 kgs of potatoes per hectare. But Right now, we have a production of over 15 tons of potatoes. This has helped the farmers to not only take the children to school. Some have built houses. Some diversified their activities, like cultural activities, and also some have acquired land. Let's say that the relief here in Congo and the climate is a good opportunity for the farmers. And those who have acquired more lands, they are capable of producing potatoes over a year, because he won't only produce during the rainy season, but he can also produce in the dry season. And let's also note that the potatoes needs also a rotation. It's a culture where you need a rotation. And with the grant of the USADF, most of the farmers have really grown and have expanded their business.
Interesting. And one thing I like about what you said, when you talked about the issue that you have, especially with roads having roads being in a poor state, it's sort of what Jeff alluded to earlier in his opening remarks. When he talks about market linkage, it comes with some of these factors. How do you ensure transportation from the farm to market is seamless? And we'll be coming to you, Ovid, and back to tell us how you've overcome that. But let me speak to Musa for a minute. Musa, the incredible story of how women are empowered in your country to especially own land that they can cultivate is very inspiring. Since the filming of the piece that we watched, we are aware, or we would like to know, how has the output of agricultural produce increased because of women smallholder farmers being more empowered?
Okay, thank you, George, for your question. Good morning, everyone. So I'm very happy to be in this panel to discuss about agricultural opportunities and challenges in Mali, especially when we are talking about women implication. Mali is an agricultural country, and it's also a cereal producing country. Last year, Mali produced 10 million tons of cereal for the first time. With that performance for the first time, it's the result of a commitment at the top and the down level. Top level because of government commitment to invest more in agriculture. I'll come on that later, but also down commitment because of the efforts of millions of smallholder farmers, including women. So women played a great role in this performance. So women are key players, but in rural areas, especially, women are facing a lot of challenges which are preventing them to play and to exploit their full potential in terms of agricultural production. One of those issues is land. In rural areas, women have very low access to land. In family farming areas, women have mostly access to limited size of land and usually to unproductive land. Usually women have low access to family farming equipments. Men are prioritized. They use those equipments in their farms first after women get them. And the rainy season does not wait. So it means usually they are facing delay in having access to equipment to farm their fields. Women have limited access to seeds and fertilizers. Seeds and fertilizers are very important key production factories. And in countries like Mali, men are really prioritized because fertilizer, especially subsidized fertilizer, is linked to cotton production. So if you don't produce cotton, you have a limited access to subsidized fertilizer. And fertilizer is costly. So this prevents women from having adequate fertilizer, enough fertilizer. And also, in terms of labor force, we talked about that. Women work in family farms, and also they work in their own farms. So it's a shared labor between family efforts and their own efforts. But when you come to family expenses, it's mainly women in terms of nutrition and even in terms of bringing crop, because we would see that we saw that when women produce 75% of their production, of their crop production, is used in family nutrition. And when men bring crop, it's all. For the rest of nutrition factor, ingredients and stuff, it's up to women. Then women have to sell the 25% portion, then to come to play a role in that nutrition. And we have very other different expense factors like schooling of children, health fees, marriage, ceremonies. So you have all these different expenses that are here where we are looking at women, but they don't have these factors. So that is why we have seen that in some examples, like the one we saw for the women of Wakoro, which is a small rural area around 200 kilometers east of Bamako. Bamako is our capital city, where they brought this commitment and put aside this experience of coming together in an organization, a cooperative, getting officialized, showing commitment to partner with USADF to favor their access to production factors. So land, we have seen that when women get their own production factors, this can facilitate their access to land. Because as I said, if family production factors for which men are prioritized and women have to wait, but if women have their own production equipment, they don't have to wait. Then men can say, okay, these women, we can grant them more land because they have their own production factor. This is what happened when USADF between 2016 and 2018, when USADF provided that grant, which allowed the women to pay their own production equipment, mainly cows and the plows. We saw that on the video. Then this gave confidence and commitment in local authorities like mayor, chief of village, men themselves. When they saw that, they say, okay, now women have their own production factors, we can give them land. And they gave them land. This cooperative was covering 30 villages, and each village, they gave 1 hectare of land to the group, to the small group of women in that village. Then at the level of the cooperative, we ended up having 30 hectares. In addition to that, each individual woman also got land from their families, ranging from 0.5 to 1 hectare. And they would use their production equipment to farm those plots in time. So no need to wait. And also in gathering, they got assistance. We trained them. They got access to seed with a seed shop in the village, assistance, production factors, willingness, land, and the result is immediate. We saw an increase in productivity in production. For example, between 2016 and 2018, women yield in terms of sorghum production increased from 0.6 tons per hectare to 0.8 tons per hectare. So in 2 years period. So this was to say that if women have access in land, and it's not just borrowing, it's a full control on that land. They have their own production factor. They don't need to wait. They have access to seed and fertilizer. They have access to technology, technical assistance. They can boost their production and become a key player in this performance that Mali has achieved, and which we assume that with examples like Wako, we can continue in that way of having women play a greater role in food security if we put them in the condition. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh wow. And good thing is, whatever the problem you had identified, you have managed to find in one way or another solutions, and these solutions are yielding results. We'll come back to you, Musa, later, but Caroline is being represented by Natalie. Natalie, earlier when Ovid was talking, he was talking about the importance of value addition in products. With the world getting, with value addition on farm products being one thing on the side, many on the continent have lost money because of not taking advantage of how to add value on the products that they are making. In Burkina Faso, the Ragusi Association has worked so hard to produce shea butter and even take it to the market. Has this been a continuing success? I know right now you have over 1,500 women, but has the success been replicated?
Okay, thank you, George, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who are listening to us across the continents. I'm very pleased to contribute to this panel at the request of Caroline. Caroline is the beautiful woman you have seen in the video. I am backing up because she is constrained, and as the country program coordinator of USADF, I hope that I can reasonably respond on behalf of Ragusi and to the best of their interests. Thank you once again. And yes, I am confirming that we have a continuous success with Ragusi. By the way, I could say that Ragusi in itself is a great story because it's the story of women who come up together in 1998 to set up a group. You have seen it in the video that these women, they have something in common. Because they have traditionally, they used to collect shea nuts that is found in their, how can I say, in their community, in their village lands, and to process it into shea butter. And they use it for themselves, and they also sell the small surplus on the market. But indeed, selling it individually, you can't get better prices. So they got this bright idea, aware of the poverty in their community, also concerned by the consequences of that poverty on their own lives. They become self-determined, ambitious to overcome those difficulties. I like this. I like the idea of self-determination. I like the idea of, the ambition behind this organization, to overcome one's own difficulties. And therefore, they decided that they will group the collection of the nuts, and they will process together in order to meet the existing demand of overseas partners in the cosmetic industry. Yeah, and that's, I mean, from few years back, I mean, when Ragusi crosses the path of USADF, they were really constrained in terms of having the technical and the managerial capacities, you know, to expand their business and meet that existing demand. They were facing a lack of productive equipment. You know, for whoever knows the process of shea butter processing, it's labor intensive, and it's also very hard. When you take, for example, the churning, the knitting of the shea, it's really hard work. So they needed that productive equipment to really reduce the difficulty in the process. They also needed adequate infrastructure and need working capital, you know, to be able to get the nuts in time, process it, and respond to the demand of their clients. So that was the picture at the beginning when we get into, when we started the partnership with them. And what we have done is really to help them stick on their priority needs, you know, and bring tailored responses, you know, to these constraints. So we help them with the infrastructure renovation. We help them with acquiring productive equipment. We help them to improve their managerial and their technical capacities in order to produce along the standards demanded by their overseas clients. And we also facilitate the linkages to the market, because when we started with them, they were like dependent on a sole client, and it was important to diversify the portfolio of clients. So that's what we have done with Ragusi as USADF and over 3 years. And I can tell you that at the end of these 3 years, the results were tangible, you know, because these ladies, they were able to improve, to create jobs, you know, I would say to turn these marginal, how can I say, activities into decent jobs for these women collectors and for the women processors. They increase their annual revenue as an enterprise, and they also increase the revenues of the individual women in the association. We have calculated at that time that they have been able to multiply their revenue by 2.5 folds at the end of the project, which is significant from where we have started the how can I say, the partnership. As of today, and just to illustrate a little bit, she was telling me that for the most recent production campaign, that was 2009-2020, they have been able to process 80 tons of shea butter for a revenue that exceeded 100 million CFA. Yes, and yeah, as you said, the most interesting with this example is that is to see how going into processing helps to create jobs in the communities, to increase the revenues, and in fact to retain most of the value addition in those communities, and by the same token in the country, rather than by comparison of selling raw material or exporting raw material. So definitely, Ragusi is a great success story that I am happy to share with all of you. Yeah, thanks.
And I think it sticks with what you started. You started by helping these women with self-determination and empowering their ambition. We'll be getting back to you, Natalie, in a few minutes, but let's go back to Geraldine. Geraldine, when we were speaking the first time, you talked about the importance of lifting households, and by lifting women, you lift households. After lifting households, you lift communities. One key thing for smallholder farmers is to increase their income. Through the speakers who've had an opportunity to do their opening remarks, linkages to market has been key. How has your docket at USADF helped farmers earn more from their sweat?
Thank you. I think my colleagues who are here, Musa and Natalie, really did a fantastic job kind of helping answer that question already in terms of how we're trying to link the farmers. So number one thing is, as Natalie had clearly noted, what we do at ADF is not just provide the capital, working capital to our grantees, but we also provide them with the technical assistance. The technical assistance more like a business advisory in terms of how they can increase their income, how they can increase the productivity, and how they can increase the quality of the products that they're developing. So looking at the agriculture and looking in agriculture also including livestock as well, what we try to do is increase the knowledge, because one of the things that is key, and in addition to just having the working capital, is having the working knowledge of how market work, having financial literacy is a very key component of it. So we ensure that our grantees are fully empowered with the knowledge and with the resources that is needed for them to move forward. So when we are talking about linkages and market linkages specifically, we're not just talking about just on the international level, as we ultimately hope for all of our grantees to get to, but we try to strengthen the regional markets as well. So we start that way. So ultimately for us, once we are able to empower the grantees with the financial, the working capital, the financial literacy, we also ultimately want to make them sustainable. And the way we do that is ensuring that they have mastered these keys, and now they have access to finance. So now as they graduate, they move on to expanding their businesses. Now they can go to banks, and banks are able to loan them funds to grow or expand their businesses. So for us, that's how it all kinds of pile up in terms of bringing it all together. And like you have said, and like my colleague Musa had said, once you do lift the woman up, you lift not just her and her family, but the whole community. And there's a whole value chain starting from the policy level all the way to the household practices that we look at, and we look at it different ways. And in the donor community, some focus on the policy reform component, while we at ADF focus on the practices and the household level. I don't know if that answered the question, but I wanted to keep it brief so we can get answers in there.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And just before I jump over to Jeff, remember this stream is live on Facebook, and our audience on Facebook, you are allowed to send in questions, and the panel here will be happy to answer any questions that you have. We'll be getting to our Facebook questions and comments in a few, but let's speak to Jeff. Jeff, when we spoke for the first time, one of the things that you were talking about today was the importance of value addition, which has been a common word as we have continued with this discussion. But I want to switch a bit. Why are partnerships important in helping smallholder farmers access bigger opportunities? For example, markets, farm inputs, trainings, and what is the process of creating meaningful and sustainable partnerships?
It's a good question, George. Yeah, and partnerships are incredibly critical because no one person or one agency or entity can do it alone. I mean, everybody has a unique role to play, and development and assistance in general, and in life. I mean, many of us have partners, many of us have friends and families that help us get through various stages in our lives and our careers. So, and without that support, really can't do much alone. So USADF has many partners. We work with governments, Ugandan government, government of Uganda, government of Benin, government of Malawi, Lagos State in Nigeria, Kebbi State in Nigeria. All of these governmental organizations value USADF as a partner. We work collectively and collaboratively on, and I can't forget government of Senegal as well. And we work collectively and collaboratively on the programs to help the smallholder farmers. And without each other's support, we really wouldn't be as impactful. But we also work with private sector. Our current partnership we have right now is what we're calling the Coalition of Farmer Allied Intermediaries. It's sort of a long, phrase for your mouth, but it's a group of lending social pioneers that includes TechnoServe, Partners in Food Solution, USADF, Root Capital, Land O'Lakes, Venture 37, and Bain & Company. And we all joined forces to essentially help smallholder farmers and help intermediaries. And intermediaries, what are they? So they're businesses that can include producer cooperatives, aggregators, processors, and essentially these are organizations that strategically source inputs from commercial-oriented smallholder farmers in a way that helps the farmer realize their production potential, and while also increasing their incomes. Without everybody sort of playing their part and having a role together, then we wouldn't be able to really transform Africa's agricultural and food systems, which ultimately will reduce poverty, increase employment, while providing affordable, nutritious foods for a growing population. So it really takes, the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It's the same thing that we're trying to do here. It takes many players in the whole game that are all working towards the same goal to achieve that goal. And the way you can continue on building successful, lasting partnerships that are meaningful is through trust, cooperation, and really a flexibility, because not your way isn't the only way. The way I see something isn't the way that somebody else sees it. And we don't have to go my way or nothing. I can be flexible, just like I would hope that other partners would be flexible with us. So just to sort of keep it brief, and I'm happy to expand on it, but without partnerships, we would be alone. And it's lonely when you're alone. And we should always try to have somebody with us to make life a little bit better.
And to help you get even further. Yes, we'll be getting back to you, especially when you talk about intermediaries. We want to understand that bit more. But for the time being, let's go over to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Ovid, you were talking about your country's potential. 2/3 of your population is farmers. Food security is very, 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 very key in the development agenda of Africa as a continent. Projects like potato and onion farming are centered towards food security. How different is your approach as ASOP from what every other farmer in Africa is doing? Sorry, Ovid, you're on mute.
So I was saying again, I'm sorry, it's afternoon here and
it's okay.
So please bear with me. So I was saying the food security is one of the sector of intervention of ASOP. And the way we do things differently from other farmers is that we work with what we call development families. A development family is consisting of the father, the mother, and the son or the child. So we bring together the whole family working into agriculture, and we bring everyone on board so that they can put something on the table. It's not a matter of leaving the mother or just the father into the field, but we bring everyone on board. And when we bring everyone on board, we especially now concentrate on the youth. We take the youth into consideration because years after the parents have decided to take a break from bringing something on the table, we have realized that many young people were not able to keep up with the ongoing agricultural activities. So we brought the approach of bringing the development families and bring everyone on board. And that's how we came up with a program that we call ULIMA. ULIMA, which is a platform of young people with different ideas in agricultural sector, but also in value chain or food or in food security. So what we also do different is that for us, we haven't forgotten about the culture, the old culture, and in our old culture, we try to keep up with the staple foods that were used to be planted long ago, and we try to keep up with the seedling or the seeds of different products, so that we do not only rely on the new seeds or varieties that are coming up, but also we try to keep the old ones. And with that saying, most of the seeds coming up nowadays, some do not adapt to our climate or to our soil. So that's why we try to figure out how to keep the old seeds, which most of them actually we don't even have their scientific names, but we try to keep up with them. And also with that saying, we also keep up with old routines like in fertilizers uses. We have farmers who still use tobacco or chili as pesticides. In making their own fertilizer, we use different shrubs or different crops, a mix of different crops, instead of relying on also chemical pesticide. And also we have brought an approach which is the zero grazing unit, a zero grazing unit that helps families on education, mostly on educational level. We believe that every kid or every child has to go to school. So with zero grazing units, we know that we will not only have milk or meat on the table, but also the kids will go to school instead of going after or running after the cows or the sheep. And then later, maybe when he comes back from school, he can do some work around the house. And that also helps in solving land conflicts, because with zero grazing, once one cow want to go and graze on the neighbor's corn or neighbor's bean fields. So that's how we try to keep up and do things differently.
That makes sense, and we'll come back to you if we have time. We'd love to learn more on how you effectively use zero grazing to increase income, and how you're using non-harmful ways of protecting crops, and also the successes of the value chain. But that's if we'll have time. But let's jump on and go straight to Mali. While Ovid was speaking, Musa, he mentioned something about climate change, talking about how climate change has affected crop production. First of all, congratulations on your country producing 10 million tomato seed and seedlings, yeah? But with the increasing population, land and water are becoming even more scarce. Apart from encouraging farmers to plant drought-resistant crops, are there any new techniques that you have employed to ensure sustainability of projects like the one Wakora women have been undertaking?
Okay, thank you. Yes, we are a Sahel country, so we are facing climate change. We have irregular production years. In some years we have droughts. In some years we have flooding. And just these last days we had about floodings in our neighboring countries. So we didn't face major floodings this year, but it's something that is here and we have to take that into account. And we are also a fast-growing country in terms of population. We have a fast-growing population, that's true. So we are talking about land, access to land. It's not for the sake of extending unlimitedly on land access. We are talking about land to have some fairness in terms of access to land for women. But the slogan, especially here, is on intensification of production. That production is not just a matter of having big sizes, but also to improve productivity. So even if we have a small land, to bring that land to be as productive as we need to face the food security needs and also the poverty alleviation features. So to reach that, yes, we are working with farmers, especially these women, in terms of capacity building to shift from traditional unproductive farming features to improved farming features. That is done in different ways. We have talked about the issue of access to production factors and access to land, but we have access also to capacity building. We have to train them in improved production technologies so that they can be informed, they acquire the skills to master the weather, to have access to weather information, because this can be determinant on which type of crop you need to grow, what time do you need to do it to make your campaign successful. We train the women, we funded the training for women in terms of features like composting. I think this appeared on the video. This is something that everybody can access, especially in rural areas. So it is not as complicated as that. It is very good for productivity and it's less costly. So then in doing that, they spend less in fertilizers. We have also issues like diversification, because this group was mainly focusing on sorghum. And we know that we have other crops which are more productive than sorghum. I've said it that they have increased the productivity in sorghum, but we know that even if you use the most advanced technologies, sorghum production cannot reach the level of corn production. Here with sorghum production, currently we have some partner farmers who can go from 1 ton per hectare to above even reach 1.5 hectares, tons per hectare. But with corn, using new technologies, good seeds, compost, simple technologies, we can reach up to 5 tons per hectare. It's a great difference. And also how we farm, which type of equipment we use to farm. because we talk of great numbers in terms of population, but even in these cooperatives, we have great numbers. In USADF, we liked having hundreds and thousands of farmers. And we have seen that in this cooperative, the cooperative has been fastly attracting new members because in 2 years, it doubled the number of members. So for example, they can choose between buying a tractor and having cows and plows. So they chose cows and plows because this is what they're experienced with, which they can use easily, which they can split among the different members, which they can manage, which they can replace quickly, which they can even increase, because we have seen that the number of cows and plows that USADF funded in 2 years, the women themselves through the earning have added a number of other cows and plows to extend that to other groups. And also those animals could also participate in compost making. So we have these kind of measures that are really innovative for these kind of women groups, which current level of technology allows us to have access. And as the issue of partnership has been discussed, with having multiple partnerships with technical services, capacity building, and development organization like USADF, everybody playing its role, we can have a production that fits our reality in Sahel in case we have floods or in case we have droughts. The way in which we are producing, we can still keep a good standard of production which would prevent us from hunger. And I think that these women have really started going into that direction because, as we have seen, they are having access to land, but it's also a matter of fair, innovative management of that land to achieve the successful crop production we are looking for. And I think with USADF support in terms of especially capacity building, this is has been our message to them, and they've been practicing, and we have seen the results.
Correct. And we'll if we have time, we might get back to you to expound more on the successes that Mali is continuing to see and preparing for the future. But let me just sneak in a quick question before we go to Facebook. Let me sneak a quick question to Natalie. The world is getting cheaper and better packaged products from Europe, America, and Asia. How are organizations like Ragusi setting themselves up for success and competing with brands from outside the continent, especially on industries like the production of shea butter? If you can answer that briefly.
Okay, thank you, George. I can tell you that this is a huge challenge. In fact, for not only for Ragusi, but for African enterprises. You know, when you look at it, in Africa, we used to consume. In many instances, you know, goods, services which are produced outside the continent. And I believe that this is something that we should strive to progressively reduce and to rely more on our local production. We are talking about shea, but if you take a staple food like rice, you will see that in many of our countries, we import rice from outside rather than relying on the internal production. So for me, the question is that, you know, for me, when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking that we have the resources. You know, when you look at in Africa, we have Arab land, we have, you know, a product like the shea, which is collected in the wild. You have a young labor force. The question is, where are the missing links, in fact, to increase the productivity and the competitiveness of African enterprises? You know, and if you take up the agricultural sector as a whole, and you know, in the broader sense, not just agriculture, but you integrate livestock, you integrate, how can I say, forestry products, what we usually call the agro-silvopastoral sector, there is a huge potential for Africa to become food secure and even to produce and export. Yeah, now what it takes is really a strong political will in countries, you know, strong partnerships to organize the value chains, to facilitate things like access to financing, you know, in order to invest more in infrastructure and productive capital. And above all, for me, and I think this is key, to really put an emphasis on the construction, on the improvement of the capacities of the human capital. You know, for Ragusi, if I come back to the example of Ragusi, I would tell you that the shea remains a strategic product. It is seen as the green gold for the thousands of women in those areas where the resource is available. And the shea has many applications. You know, Ragusi, when you look at the example of Ragusi, you will see that they are producing mainly for the cosmetics, but there are huge other markets in the chocolate industry. You know, there are other food and non-food applications for the shea. And the challenge for Ragusi is really to size those market opportunities and to strive in order to keep the quality of their production, you know, in order to serve different segments of the market. You know, when I talk about different segments of the market, I could see the domestic market, but also the regional market. You know, we used to kind of undermine the potential for Africans, countries among themselves, you know, to trade. And there is a potential in this regional market. And indeed, take advantage of the growing demand at the level of the international market. So what it takes is to keep good organization, to keep transparency, a good traceability in their operations, to really always upgrade the level of their productive equipment and infrastructure, and you know, to be well inserted in those networks in order to get a better access to financing. You know, because what we have done with Ragusi, and I believe Geraldine has mentioned it, is to give them to help them with a grant and help them become investable, become bankable, so that they can mobilize this follow-on financing, you know, with more classical, you know, mechanism of financing. So for me, and to get professional human resources, you know, for me, it is important with USADF support we have accountants in those enterprises. In some of the enterprises, we even hire, we help them hire agronomists, definitely, in order to consolidate your position in the value chain, and even to move up, to upgrade your position in the value chain. These are the ingredients you definitely need to work on and to continue to consolidate. Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. My producer is on my case because our time is up, but allow me to just ask two very quick questions to Jeffrey and to Geraldine. These are from Facebook, so if you can answer them briefly so that our Facebook community also does not feel left out. This is their watch party too, so they need to get some answers. So the first question that comes to you, Geraldine, how does or how can subsistence, sorry, let me just go back to that question. Yeah, how can conventional agriculture and ecological agriculture coexist? And can we compromise on solutions? What would you have to say for that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again? I apologize.
So how can conventional agriculture and ecological agriculture coexist equally? And can we compromise on solutions? I remember Musa talking about how farmers are using tobacco leaves as pesticides, and we know, especially in the production of food, there's mechanized agriculture and traditional forms of agriculture. So as we move to feed the future, how can these two forms of agriculture coexist, and will we need to compromise any of them?
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. So I definitely think that, first of all, great question. We do have examples of that, of how they are coexisting and we're building from it. I think from the beginning, I had mentioned the Niger project, right? So one of the things that we try to do is incorporating, like Natalie had mentioned, we do hire specialists when we're developing projects, especially when there's irrigation components involved in that process. And if there is something that comes along with, resilience, especially in the areas where we're dealing with the Sahel, where it's a climate change resilience that's happening. So most of our agricultural projects will have to be climate resilient, right? So in addition to just being sure that, environmentally it's sound, we have the technical expertise that we actually procure to support on the advisory of how that project will do, as well as one thing that is unique with ADF, which I'm sure you probably got kind of touched upon, is how we're incorporating technology into it. So one of the things we do is incorporating cold storages, for example. How do we do that? And including also how we're using natural resources, composing of that sort, as well as using more current agricultural practices. So that is one way we're meeting the old and the new. The new meaning, like we're still using natural resources. For example, the technology that I'm referring to is using solar panels to not only, to keep the storages, but we're also looking in how we're using that to power cold storage that helps transporting goods from one location to another. So I don't want to make it long-winded, but I hope I had answered that question. But I'm happy to go into more elaborate information, and we do have some information that we can provide. This project that we're doing on the Niger specific one, for example, can be found on MCC's website. It is an MCC ADF project that we're working on across Niger. We have about 25 25,000 Nigerians that we're hoping to impact, that will be impacted from this investment. So more to come from our end on our website, but you can certainly go onto MCC website under their Niger portfolio, and you can read more about that specific on how we're the old is meeting the new, and how we're taking specific environmental and other due diligence processing in terms or in mind as we provide these projects for these communities where we intervene. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure more conversations or discussions about this can be available on our comment section on Facebook. So the website that you've mentioned, or if after this panel you get a chance, please jump onto Facebook and just answer some of the questions, because there are very many questions that people would like to know more about. Let me speak to Jeffrey for the next question. Jeffrey, earlier when Natalie was talking, she mentioned the success of shea butter in Burkina Faso is to the tune of 100 million CFA, which translates to around 180,000 US dollars, meaning there is money in agriculture. The question that I'm seeing on Facebook right now asks, how prepared is Africa to hit the $1 trillion food market target by the year 2030?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's a very complex question. I mean, there's a lot of pieces that are involved that, you know, are outside of my purview. There needs to be a lot of government intervention to be able to make that happen. But as Natalie has said, I mean, the resources are there, the people are there, the work ethic is there. There's not lacking any sort of those pieces. People want to invest there. There is investment. It now comes really down to the policies of all the governments. And if policies can be geared to the benefit of the farmer and to a group of farmers and to the nation and, you know, the regions, then the sky is the limit. I mean, honestly, you know, people are adaptable. Yes, climate change is going to be a big issue in the future, and it's already an issue right now in many countries, but people are going to adapt, and we're going to find ways to continue to produce as humans. That's what we do. We're going to survive. But, you know, to become that $1 trillion economy, I don't think we're far away from that, but, you know, there will have to be some big changes that are well beyond my control or my vision even necessarily. So I'm open to seeing that. I mean, that's what we all on this panel are working for. And we'll just have to, you know, take it one day, 1 month, 1 year at a time.
And hopefully in a year or two, we'll have another panel discussion and see the progress of where we are. Thank you very much. I cannot stretch my time more than I have stretched already, but thank you very much, Ovid. Thank you very much, Natalie. Thank you very much, Jeffrey, Musa, and Geraldine, for your time and input in this panel discussion. And a huge, huge, huge thank you to our Facebook community for the questions and for the interactions. This has been the Yebo Watch Party. We've been discussing how to empower farmers by investing in agribusiness. Next week, we are discussing women entrepreneurship. So it will be another exciting week to discuss something more and something new in these weekly discussions. We are just a week away from our next series, so we leave you with a glimpse of what we have in store in a week's time. Thank you guys, and have a lovely, lovely, lovely weekend. Take care.